What is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Crowd Pleaser, the talk show that brings you the inside scoop on what it takes to be a male entertainer in today's age. I'm your host, Cesar Goyaso, aka the Crowd Pleaser, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Tyler Owen. How you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing pretty good, Cesar. Been a good week for us here at LeBaire and in our own personal individual lives outside the club, so we just want to touch base on some other things that people have had questions about.
All right. Well, before we get to our show, first things first, we want to let you know that this show is brought to you by you through the Patreon. This is patreon.com/crowdpleaser. Thanks to you guys coming in and pledging some donations to us every show. It's what helps us improve our show quality and bring you more and more content. You can sign up for as little as $1 per show. You can set a monthly limit so you don't go over your budget, and you get perks. You can cancel whenever you want. All right, second is LeBaire Dallas. This is the club where both Tyler and I dance at 5 nights a week. Pretty much 52 weeks a year.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yep. 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. every week. We are your number one destination for bachelorette parties, birthday parties, divorce parties. You name it, we can celebrate it. So definitely check us out. All right, so this week we're going to be discussing bringing the LeBaire show into homes and other private venues for people that might not necessarily be 100% comfortable going to a strip club or just want to bring a little more pizzazz to their own personal party. And through this, we mean stuff like road shows and primarily Stripagrams, which is another option that LeBaire dancers offer. And pretty much everyone on the roster is trained in this, and it's something that it really supplements our income as well as promotes the show on an entirely different level than your standard word of mouth or advertisements, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with you on that. And we've kind of done a little bit of research on, just to give you a background on how the club evolved and stripping and how it really originated in general for males and females. And back in the mid 70s to the 80s, that's when male entertainment and or male reviews started to become popular. For the household person, it really didn't take off to be an individual party for anyone. It started more or less as a show. And they did have, female entertainers were around the time of before the 70s, before that even began. And in the mid 70s, that's when it really started to take off for the men, and they started to do more private shows and or Stripagrams instead of just doing anything that really didn't pertain to male stripping. It kind of was casted down and wasn't really looked upon as a cool thing in the 70s. So I believe it was 79 is when, or 78 is when Chippendales evolved. And that was in Los Angeles when it first originated and started to progress and become this giant company and entertainment show that it is today. And it's
kind of commercialize the industry,
and
make it more frontline, more headline.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great way to put it. Is it really that name right there is a branded name just as much as LeBaire is. And LeBaire started in 1978, and that was the first ever full-time male review that was a burlesque show. And that
correct,
really,
because Chippendales was strictly based on a show. They find different venues and they perform. Strictly people sit in the audience and you watch the show. Versus when LeBaire started, they were a dedicated strip club. You come in, you interact with people, much like the female clubs.
Yeah, exactly. And if you even if you do research on Chippendales, it will even tell you that they did host multi-million-dollar venues. That's really what it was a show here, fly by night type thing. We're here, we're there, and we're out. And for us, we were the first time to really be a club that was dedicated to fully being at the same venue every night of the week and putting on a quality show Las Vegas style. And that's really how it all started to evolve, and that's kind of the basis and the history background story. Now, neither me or Caesar were dancing at that time, but to kind of snowball it into an effect, it did kind of start to roll in the 70s, and that's when SNL actually had a skit with, I believe it was...
In the 90s.
Oh, in the 90s, 1990, yeah, that's right. It was Patrick Swayze and Chris Farley, and that is a hilarious skit. It's really funny, and that's when it started to take off, and that's when Chippendales was starting to get their role, as well as LeBaire, too.
Kind of started to show how the profession was slightly more accepted in across the board in society if they're willing to put it on primetime TV.
Very much so, yes. And it just shows you that over the years, I mean, it took roughly almost 15 years for it to be kind of accepted by society as a male entertainer. So even today, female entertainers are kind of perceived as something negative, and men kind of be a little more on the hierarchy of being seen as something good or anything like that. Like, it's more acceptable by society, if that makes any sense.
Correct. So one of the things, like all businesses, over time they evolve. If you stay in the game long enough, you learn how to appeal to a larger clientele and increase your customer base. So LeBaire was first established in 1978 as, like we said earlier, the first full-time strip club. In the 1990s, LeBaire, alongside one of their prime legend entertainers by the name of Randy Masterbasser, which is a legend here in Dallas, began Stripagram companies together. They offered bringing entertainers to people's homes, bringing a party, or almost like a magician to a kid's party, or some type of makeup vendor to a certain female party or stuff like that. They offered bringing the LeBaire show to your own home. And that's how it started, and it's just slowly progressed over the years to a business that really brings in a significant amount of income and publicity to the club over the course of time. So that being said, like all things in this business, there's various forms of stripogram type of services, but also minimal restrictions. So there's a lot of variance in it.
Right.
One of the first and probably most popular versions of it is the Roadshow.
Yeah.
Where you bring several dancers, anywhere from 3 to 8 guys, will go to a private venue. It could be a bar, it could be a dance club, it could be a theater, and we perform a show. LeBaire does offer that, but there's also various typical small businesses, people that get together, they put together 5 guys, and they're like, hey, we're going to be a group and we're going to tour and just go bar to bar doing these shows. Some of the characteristics of these shows is, like I said, they're small businesses, so it's kind of a small group of people working together to do it. They don't have the same resources that typically like a larger entity like LeBaire has, or a name brand. They're restricted by the venue. For example, I do a fire show. There may be a chance where we go to a venue and they are not allowed to have open flames indoors, so I can't do that, or their ceilings are not high enough or strong enough to attach a aerial silks rig. So those are just some of the options, type of music, things like that. There's guidance on those shows, but because there's so much variance in the people that you can hire and the venue and what they're allowed to do, there's variance in the show. Very rarely do you get a specific show time and time again, unless you do go with professionals like LeBaire.
Right.
Not saying the other shows lack. It's just we do it for a living. It's our career, so we professionalize and train everyone to be able to do this.
Of course, in talking about the difference of dancers and quality of the show and what is brought to the table, for most of us, I think we've obviously overseen some other dancers and seen other male reviews come in and do small little skits at shows, and nonetheless, it doesn't sound good to say that they're really not that top quality, but sometimes people just do it just to do it. I've seen multiple YouTube videos and just these lame, boring things that the guys just come out, they just get their clothes off, and that's nothing, And to us, we still bring our choreography with us, and that's something we take with us in a professional manner, in our clothes and costumes, so on and so forth, are very top quality things that we take very good care of and watch and make sure we have certain things that we go. Either we're going to rip shirts, or we're going to give out t-shirts, we're going to give out flyers. We have all these benefits to bringing to the show. It's the professionalism that comes with it is bar none when it comes to LeBaire or other types of high quality entertainers. So And I think it all whittles down to the individual as well. You know.
Yes. Like you had mentioned in our initial pilot podcast, I remember that before you even heard about LeBaire, you were actually doing private parties as a stripper, just referred to by a friend, correct?
Yeah, and that's how I did it. It was, I mean, there was no real structure to the business for me. It was more or less just a fly by night thing. I didn't have tearaways. I didn't have a costume or a skit or any type of training on how to do things and how to set up the room and play music. It was more or less like, hey, you're a good looking guy, take your clothes off. And that's really what most individuals do. There's
Correct, because there's no structure to it. It's
Of
just
course.
one guy that was like, you know what? I'm good looking. I know how to dance. I'm gonna go take my clothes off for money.
Yeah, and it's 100% word of mouth, you know. And I mean, you could try to have a business in it, but you're not going to be as successful without having the proper training and certain things like that. And it does sound funny when you say male strippers in training, but they do go hand in hand. You can't just walk into a room and manage 20, 30 women by just walking in there and knowing what to do. One, you're either going to get stage fright, or two, you're going to freak out and not know what to do.
So the problem you'll run into with that is that you'll have very inconsistent shows and people, and they don't operate with any kind of restrictions. You have no idea how they're going to act and stuff like that.
Right.
The last version is obviously the club organized, which is what we do working at LeBaire. There's a formal training program for Stripagrams, so everyone understands what they have to do and how to operate. We guarantee uniform skits. So what that means is that no one's going to just show up, take their clothes off, and start dancing.
Agreed.
And we'll go into a little bit later why that's so important. The quality assurance aspect is there. You know, just like every major company backs their product, LeBaire backs their Stripagrams as well. If you're not satisfied with your Stripagram, we're going to make sure we can do something to make it right by you. So another perk that you have also is the fact that when you want a Stripagram, when you go through these private listings and stuff like that, you know, the one person that's selling themselves is all you get.
Right.
Versus when you contact LeBaire, you can get the entertainer you want, but we also have, if you've never stepped foot in the club, we have a full roster of guys you can pick from. So let's say you've been to the club, you know what guy you like, but it's your best friend's bachelorette party.
And you know what she likes or who she likes, yeah. And the skit is all depending on who they want to, you know, have and what they like. If they like cops, if they like cowboys, they like doctors, or they want, you know, that's coming back to the whole Stripagram ordeal. And even with a show, I mean, they could even pick what they would like for a show or what kind of crowd or audience we're trying to appeal to. Everything really comes down to what the consumer wants. When it comes to a club organization, it's always very professional and I would say top notch, and the quality and the expectations are going to be there. And I've never had a road show and or Stripagram where I've ever had complaints. For me personally, I always like to make sure my party's having a good time and everyone there is involved, and it's just a very good atmosphere and setting for everyone around the whole skit, I would say.
Correct. You're completely right. One last bonus to having a club organized type Stripagram system is that you also get bonus perks involving the club.
Mm-hmm.
For example, at LeBaire, if you hire us for a Stripagram, you're going to get the Lady of Honor in for free, and you're going to get a free bottle of champagne on us automatically. You know, this also can include stuff to tickets for free entry to our next major event and discounts on our party packages, all kinds of stuff, just because you went ahead and booked us for your Stripagram. So that's something you might not necessarily get going outside of that.
Yeah, and to capitalize on that subject right there alone, I mean, you already know someone that's already been at the club, so it already kind of takes that anxiety and not knowing what to expect and everything like that. Because I usually reassure the women, you know, hey, ask for me at the door, I'll come and say hi to you, and we'll try to get you guys a good seat best as possible. And you already have that kind of familiarization by meeting someone, already getting into that kind of realm of things, and it kind of does warm you up for the club and understanding on what's really yet to come.
Correct. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we're going to discuss that a little bit later. So first things first, Stripagrams are business. Just like we have props for our acts on stage and whatnot, you have equipment that we take on Stripagrams. First off, like we said, there's skits that open up.
Right.
So you got to have all your skit props. You know, if you're doing a cop, you got to make sure you have your flashlight, which is actually an intricate part of the skit. You know, handcuffs are kind of come and go. I kind of iffy on them just because of other implications that could happen with that. But things like that, firemen, you want to make sure you have your fireman suit. you know, obviously stuff like that. Underwear. I mean,
Yeah.
I think every time, or I would say every third or fourth time, I always like kind of panic for a second. Wait, did I bring underwear? Okay, yeah, I'm wearing them. We're good to go. So that's really important. Next is speakers.
Yeah, speakers are definitely a very, very important thing to have, because you can't really rely on the party to provide those things, because they're hiring out someone else to really put on a show. You're not going to hire a DJ and him show up and say, hey, where's your Apple computer and your $4,000 stereo system? It just doesn't happen that way. When you outsource something, you really want to just turnkey and just have it show up and be done for you. So your speakers and music are definitely two major keys and things that need to be provided by the entertainer. They need to be loud enough to where they can be heard in a loud room, or a large room, I would say, not even a loud room,
or even outside.
Yeah, even outside, they need to be somewhat durable. And anywhere, those speakers do range from, I mean, anywhere from $100 to $500, depending on how big you want something, or if you want something small and compact. As well as the music, you want to have some type of set music that you come into, and either you got music for your skit. Some guys I know like to use a certain skit and use kind of the voiceover that has been used in the past, and then some people have a certain song to where they're going to strip out of, and then they have little games we're going to play and things like that that go along with the music.
The speakers and music, like you said, are intricate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're there. The skit helps to accomplish a certain task, but it's not going to take up the 45 minutes, an hour you need. And at the end of the day, they're hiring a stripper, so they want the dancing, they want the stripping. And just like in the club, the music is important. So like you touched on, the speakers need to be loud. You need to be able to have them outside, in a garage, in a hotel room, in somebody's living room. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. They need to be loud and carry, because it makes it slightly, not impossible, but slightly more difficult to hold the party's attention when people can start to have conversations, or they feel like things are quiet enough where they can hear other people talk about them. Yeah. So it's just something that kind of sets the mood. One thing to consider as well, because like we touched on, you never know where exactly you're going to have the party at. Mm-hmm. They need to also be battery powered. Yeah. Whether they're rechargeable batteries, or you put in a bunch of AA's or something like that. You know, I definitely recommend having a backup that can plug into a wall, because you never know when batteries go bad.
I always have a battery. I always have a charger or something like that.
Because you might end up doing it outside, and someone doesn't have a plug outside. Right. Or you're at a bar, but you're in a private room of a bar when you get just various things. So it's always helpful to have some kind of battery operated speakers. You know, somebody's house, you want to put them high in the middle of the living room and stuff like that. To touch on music as well, you know, like you said, there's various things. Some people just kind of put their phone on Spotify and let that play. You know, other people, I myself, much like I have my edited mixes for my stage performances, I have edited mixes for Stripagrams. Right. They're obviously a little different. The songs run a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. They also have a lot more music in them. You know, Stripagrams, like we touched on, are anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour. And you could be dancing anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes. So with that, your mix has to accommodate that. You're not on stage for 12 minutes, you're on stage for 30 minutes. Yeah. I also have various mixes, not necessarily for the skit I'm doing, but more for like the crowd. If I walk in and I see it's a primarily Latin group, then I have a mix that has a little more Latin music mixed in there, a little more reggaeton, a little more merengue, and whatnot. If I go in and it's more of a country crowd, then I have another mix that still has my typical top 40 music, but I slide in a little more country and stuff like that, much like you do on your set. Yeah. And it's almost like your chance to become someone else a little bit. If there's music that somebody else rocks on stage that you really like, then hey, the Stripagram, you're the only one there, so you can play whatever music you want. Right. That handles the primary equipment. There's also secondary equipment. You have your posters, your postcards, your business cards, the stuff that we advertise and pass out during these not during, but after these Stripagrams. You know, we'll go into it later why we have business cards of various guys and stuff like that. Other equipment that you might have, it's not always a bachelorette party. Sometimes it's a divorce party. Sometimes it's a birthday party. I like to add on a little extra something for birthday parties, so I bring birthday horns and do a little skit with those. Okay. You know, so that's something to consider. Some guys bring, you know, a balloon or something like that, or something else for the birthday girl or for the bachelorette. So that's something they need to consider. And of course, you need a suitcase or some type of bag to carry all this. The standard is a suitcase. That being said, you know, we always get the argument that, like, hey, when does a cop walk around with a suitcase or a fireman?
Yeah, that's always a big thing. But I usually try to leave it outside the door when I knock on the door and kind of appeal that, hey, I'm a cop, or hey, I'm a fireman or a cowboy or whatever, and I just set it out to the side, or if I'm walking in, I mean, it's kind of hard to hide it. So you kind of have to just avoid that in the whole aspect of everything.
And that's a technique. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Like, I always walk in with mine, but I just kind of try to command the room so much that people don't have enough time to notice. Like, hey, why does he have a suitcase? Plus, honestly, I feel like it's okay to have something that kind of breaks the costume. Not necessarily for the party, but for the way up to and leaving the party.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many times I've walked across a cop or two while in a cop uniform. Last thing I want to do is make them think that I'm trying to directly impersonate them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it has its pros and cons. Your hygiene equipment, once again, we're going to be up close and personal to a lot of people. So you definitely want to take some kind of smell good cologne or something like that, or body spray, gum, mouthwash, mints. I normally stay away from gum just because I'm worried that I might forget to spit it out, and then I'm sitting there chewing while performing the show.
I usually have breath mints or something, but I do pretty good about swallowing my gum, so.
Good to know. Another less known thing till you need it is a sweat rag.
Yeah.
I typically just carry a bandana just because it doesn't look like a wet towel.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you're outside in somebody's garage, there's no AC out there.
Right.
So you're going to get hot real quick. You're going to sweat. And, yes, there's some people that don't mind you being sweaty. There's some people that are turned on by it. But there's a handful of people that don't want you anywhere near them like that.
Exactly.
So, heaven forbid it should be the bachelorette.
Yeah. That's happened to me quite a few times where you look pretty sweaty or unappealing, and then the people are like, hey, you mind if I get you a water and a towel? Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Hey.
And they're just sitting there drying you off, and it
Hey,
just
you
turns
built
into a
rapport.
weird
They're
thing.
willing to do something for you.
Yeah.
The last things that you want to have are markers to write on posters and postcards that we bring, sign stuff for people. And as we spoke about earlier, the discount vouchers for parties and stuff like that, and event tickets. Typically when we have a strip off coming within a month, everyone that gets Stripagrams prior to that, we hand out, roughly about 8 to 15 tickets for everyone to get in for free. Just another thank you for thinking about us for your personal parties and stuff like that. Do you have anything to add to the equipment that you might bring, Tyler?
For myself, it's really accurate about what you're saying. I think everyone that's really professional at our club does fairly the same thing. I know some people have different ideas or anything else, but it's all a pretty set standard. There's nothing that varies so much from a different side of the spectrum to where, hey, I'd show up to the Stripagrams on a hoverboard. I don't have anything crazy like that, but for everything that I bring, no, I wish I did. For everything that I bring, it's really the same typical things, and it's always top quality, always making sure my stuff's charged, and I have all my music lined up and everything like that. Just really boils down to making sure your P's and Q's are lined up and you're ready and set to do some skit or whatever it may be, a road show or whatever it comes down to be.
All right, so we've established what you need for a Stripagram. Okay. Now comes the actual Stripagram.
Right.
So prep work, like you just touched on, make sure your speakers are charged, make sure you have your equipment, everything's good to go, tip not. So your costume. Before you even walk in the door, your costume's got to look the part. Yeah. Obviously the number one requested Stripagram skit is Cop. I think it's great. It's funny. It's humor. It's very interactive. It's very popular. Who hasn't had some kind of fantasy about Cop, both male and female?
Correct.
So it works out. So you want to make sure, your costume looks good. You have tearaways. Sometimes tearaways get worn out a little bit. You got to make sure that they're in top shape. They work. They're not shredding. They're not frayed.
Dirty.
Because at the end of the day, you're the only person that's walking through that door. And you're going to be their first impression of Little Bear. Mm-hmm. So you want to be as top-notch as possible. So, that being said, your uniform has to be good, but it can't be too good.
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier as well, there's been plenty of times where I've come across, I'll go to a hotel, a major hotel, they'll be having events in the lobby and stuff, and there'll be police officers sitting down there.
Yeah.
Of course they're going to be a little cognizant of someone else walking around in a cop uniform. So, little things like for us, we're not allowed to have police written anywhere on it. We can have I don't even think we can have law enforcement, I'm not sure. But either way, you can have the ranks, you can have the ribbons, all that stuff. Just can't say police.
Right.
Little things too. If you have a blue police top, you want blue police pants. There's plenty of times where you'll see someone, they'll have,
Black
blue top and black pants or vice versa. we want a badge. Same thing with the firefighter costume.
Yeah.
You don't want to walk in there with a Party City costume. That says a lot about you.
Yeah.
Do you have to have the full-blown hazard suit where you can go into a flaming building and be fine? It's choice. I'll be honest, I have one. I don't always wear it. During the summer, it's a little tough.
Right.
But it's there, and you really want to sell the part. And look like they got what they hired.
Mm-hmm.
You want to obviously get to the club early, prep everything, research where you're going, make sure you have enough time to get there and get there ahead of time. My rule is I'd rather wait in the car or wait in the hallway for 15, 20 minutes than to be 1 minute late.
Yeah.
And that's pretty standard. Like, I think one of the largest complaints that people have is if their entertainer is late. Because at the end of the day, they're doing the party for somebody else, their timed stuff. And even if all the guests are late, you want to be there on time because that is what will freak them out.
Exactly.
So you get there early, make sure smell good, breath's good, everything, speakers work, music, and then you knock on the door, right? So typically what I like to do, I'll end up getting a face-to-face with the person that hired me.
Right.
That way I can make sure that everything's working to plan. Our bachelorette's in there, our birthday girl's in there, have an idea of what's going on, and just any special instruction. Hey, they might be like, hey, she's pregnant, so if you can not grind on her too hard, stuff like that. And as well to collect the fee. The reason why we collect up front is because, like you stated as well, is that you never know what's going to happen when you walk through that door. You can walk in through that door and there's 3 ladies on respirators and this is their last dying wish of happiness. Or you can walk into a place with 250 women. So you want to make sure the money's in your pocket, both for you and the club, ahead of time.
You know what? I'm dying on your payment.
Hey, you never know what's going to happen.
Walking into a nursing home, I haven't yet to do that, but it would be worth
Just give it a while. I've been dancing a little longer than you have.
Have you really done a nursing home? Please tell me yes.
Possibly.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, there was that party that I think you were working when that happened. There was a party that came to the club as a field trip, like an entire nursing home came in with like 15.
I remember that. Yeah, that was very interesting. I think we hosted a special event for them. Yeah.
Okay.
It was someone's birthday, I believe.
Let's get back on topic though. So the skit is more important than it seems. You pick a theme that works for the bachelorette or the birthday girl or the divorcee. She might be marrying a firefighter. She might be a nurse and want doctor. Or they just want to have some fun. They have cop. They want fantasy. But the cop or the skit also helps break the ice and set the venue, the stage. So, like I said before, I come in, kind of try to take command of the situation. The reason is you want to really gather everyone's attention. Prep. You might show up in the middle of the party. There might be people that are late that's going on. So you want all eyes on you, all eyes on our bachelor, our girl of honor, because at the end of the day, it's her party. You want her to feel special.
Exactly.
So I make sure that I get everyone set up in a circle. I grab the bachelorette, put her in the middle, get my chairs lined up for the people I'm going to primarily be performing on, and really kind of cater it so it suits you.
Right.
And the reason why this is so important is because you don't know the venue. Like I said, you could be in a ballroom, you could be in a hotel room that does or doesn't have chairs. So you really want to take command of the situation early and set it up where it best fits you. There's nothing worse than when I show up, do a stripagram at a hotel, and all the girls are either standing or in the bed sprawled out. Yeah, it's like, how do you expect me to dance on everyone?
Yeah, and it doesn't make it very easy when there's not very an accommodating atmosphere for you. You just kind of really have to be a professional and take charge of the situation and perceive everything to be, okay, I'm going in here expecting the best and or worst, but I also have to know I'm here to put on a good show, so let's set this up, let's get this going, and let's make sure everything's revolving around, the maid of honor, or whoever else is the other girl that maybe put it on for her. You always want to kind of fulfill everyone's fantasy and get a vibe about who's wanting to hang out and have a good time, and then there's people that are running away.
Yeah, of course. And on that, that's what the skill helps to do. It increases comfort and builds rapport with your crowd. They don't know what they're getting. They really don't. 9 out of 10 times, at least half the people at a stripagram have never been around a stripper, or know what's coming. So the last thing you want to do is just show up, get naked, and be all up in their face.
Right.
So the skit gives you a chance for people to settle down and see, like, what's going on over here? Okay, wait, it might not quite be what I think it is.
And I feel like laughter really does help a lot. I can crack a lot of jokes and have a good time because it makes the comfort level for the party attendants to really be like, okay, this guy's funny, he's kind of cute, we're having a good time. Instead of, hey, ladies, I'm here to get butt naked and make you really uncomfortable. That's not the whole ordeal of a stripogram. It's more or less to have a good time, make them laugh, and make them want to, really celebrate that occasion that they're really having for that special individual.
You're correct. You're 100% correct. And that's why I enjoy them so much, because it's so much more intimate. You're surrounded by your friends, your family. Mm-hmm. You're able to sometimes let loose a little more than you would. Sometimes you won't, because, if your mom's sitting right next to you, you're a little hard-pressed to, like, go off the rails. But
exactly.
And like you said, humor, interaction. I try to interact way more during a stripogram than I would on stage normally. Why? Because you are the life of the party. Everyone, all eyes on you. You are the orchestra, or the conductor that controls the orchestra. And so you want to interact with people. You want to interact with the people that are mouthy. You want to interact with the shy people, with the moms, with the dads, everybody. You want to set things up. And the professionalism that comes from a skit, like actually doing something rehearsed, helps also alleviate a lot of reservations. There are plenty of stripograms that you've done that are mixed crowds. You'll have just as many men or a handful of men there as women. And the quickest way to disarm them, for lack of a better term, is to show that you're not there to just violate their women.
Right.
And shoot, if you can get them laughing too, even better. You'll win them over, and shoot, they might even help you.
Yeah.
So it just, another aspect that adds to the experience, and you kind of can modify it to adjust the crowd, as well as adding to it. Like I said, for birthdays, I normally do like a little horn skit that's just one more bit of humor I can add to win people over before we finally actually get to the stripping. Now granted, sometimes the women are already intoxicated and they want me to take my clothes off as soon as walking in the door.
You never know. I mean, I've personally had, just like Caesar said, the best of both worlds. Everybody wants to hang out, or some people are shy or whatnot, and you got guys there, and you don't want to make them feel uncomfortable because you're touching on their wife or whatever, or something like that. You want to show them that you're comfortable, and you're just there doing what you're paid to do, and that's put on a good show, and have everybody put a smile on their face and have a good memorable moment for that special occasion is really the whole reason why everything's brought together.
Correct. You want to enhance the party, not anything else.
Yeah.
Period. You're there as a tool to elevate the party to the next level.
I agree.
And when you do that, I promise you, everyone's going to have a great time and no one's going to have any regrets. So following the skit comes, the meat and potatoes, I should say, of a stripogram, which is the stripping and the dancing. And it's a little different than on stage. Like we stated earlier, the time frame is a lot longer. So you really want to be a little more theatrical and build the climax for every part of it. You don't just want to rip your shirt off. You want to kind of time it, if you can, with the music, or get the crowd counting with you. Interact with the maid of honor and stuff like that. Like really kind of feel like she's a part of it.
Right.
And it's something that takes time. You can't just walk in there when you're used to a certain tempo on stage. Then now when you're performing a stripogram, you have 30 minutes to kill. You can't just do it.
Yeah, and that 3-minute mark, you're not ripping your shirt. I always have a really fun time, after we do the skit and everything like that. And just like Caesar said, you're really just building everything up to making them have a good time, or have her unbutton your shirt, or put her hands behind her back and have one of her friends unbutton your shirt. And it's just funny stuff like that. It's nothing negative or raunchy or anything like that. It's really just a very playful atmosphere.
Correct. A lot of times I'll take my belt off and tie someone's hands with it, lightly, and hold them over their head. I really don't do anything too crazy. Just tying their hands up. Most of the time, as soon as I tie their hands up, everyone already starts to hooping and hollering and screaming. And then, I just lift them up over her head, and that's good enough to get the effect. I don't change my body roll or anything else. But it makes you undressing more fun for them, more interactive, and it really elevates the environment and the feeling of it all. So, which is all about interaction, crowd interaction. You're not there. A stripogram, I feel, is the furthest thing from a Las Vegas style show.
Yeah.
You know, we're there. They are a part of the show. Point blank, simple. Everyone in the crowd, primarily the bachelorette or the birthday girl, but everyone is a part of the show. I for one, for example, typically have like a 3-to-1 rule. I'll go and dance on 2 or 3 women, and then make sure I go back to my bachelorette.
Exactly.
Then I'll go and dance on 2 or 3 different women, go back to my bachelorette. And what this does is it keeps the center of attention on the bachelorette and makes her feel special, because at the end of the day, that's what they're there for. But it also keeps everyone engaged. And it kind of almost fuels the fire on its own, because depending on who you go to, I mean, sure enough, right as rain, every single time I go to the grandma of the group, everyone just starts hooping and hollering and cheering, and everyone thinks it's a great time. And 9 out of 10 times, the grandma doesn't do anything except put a hand over her mouth and a hand on my chest, and that's it. No movement, nothing else. But like, she's having a great time, and everyone just thinks it's the coolest thing on the planet. That being said, the flip goes for the youngest girl. Typically, there's going to be a youngest girl there, and you can always tell because they're really shy. They're like, I've never seen a boy. I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
So, and once again, very little goes a long way. Most of the time, just walking up to her and giving her a good look will send her like blushing to no end, where everyone else will just start laughing for you.
Yeah, I always crack the joke, like, make sure everyone's 18 here, right? And then I just look around and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, so who's the youngest? And then they'll point out like her little sister or something like that. It's always really funny to play along and, divide that attention up and give it to whoever, seems to be a little more shy than the other ones. And just like Caesar says, you want to always spread around the fun and the interaction with everybody. You make sure, the lady of honor and the person that brought you to the party is also being, well entertained and things like that, because they both went out of their way to, one's obviously having the occasion, the other one went out of her way to, host the party. So you also want to give her a little bit more of attention as well.
Correct. And sometimes that's even a little tougher than the bachelorette, because the bachelorette is expecting to be the center of attention versus the lady that hired you. It might be in host mode. So she's like getting drinks for everyone, making sure you're okay, to making sure that, everything's going well. And she kind of forgets, like, hey, you're part of the party too, and getting her involved. And honestly, most of the time, it's typically a relative or the maid of honor for the bachelorette. So getting her involved is just as important.
Exactly. I usually like to kind of get a feel for everything being adjusted to how everybody kind of reacts to certain things, because you don't want to make someone so uncomfortable where they're not even wanting to do anything. And I say, I'm not going to hurt you. We're just going to have a game or whatever. Here, just take my shirt off or something like that. I'm not even going to touch you. And you really have to base everything on your performance and the interaction you have with the crowd, just on how they react to certain things. Some people may not be comfortable at all and literally run away from you.
Correct.
And I've had that happen multiple times.
Oh, I did. I'll never forget this. I did a stripogram at a Zumba classroom. So they had a bunch of tables and chairs set up. And the place was roughly about half full. And I kid you not, every woman, about a third of the women there, wanted nothing to do with me, to the point where they all would put chairs in front of them so I could not get to them. Yeah. They make it pretty clear where it's at. Yeah. And you really have to read the situation. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't take no for an answer right away. Even if they kind of have this look of straight fear on their face, sometimes it's just that awkward, like, you kind of got to push through it. So I kind of ease into it. If they really are reluctant, like, I mean, they're stiffing arming you and they're panicking, so I'm like, okay, cool, no worries, we're good to go. Yeah. Going back to the older ladies, more mature women like grandmas and stuff like that, they normally, you can kind of get a feel for it right away. Whether they're like, oh, I'm so nervous, but yeah, sure, we'll have a little bit of fun. Or they're just like, no, like, they're holding their hands, they're not moving. And typically there, I kind of go to like, well, can I at least get a hug? And there's some, they're normally, okay, we could get a hug. Yeah. I give them a hug, and then I just, hey, everyone give Grandma a round of applause. And that's good enough to make her feel good. The crowd's happy, and you just move on. Right. And slowly but surely, as you're making your rounds, you kind of pick who wants to interact with you, who's jumping all over you, and who, kind of wants their distance. And you get that fine line. You push the girls that need a little bit of push, and you keep your distance on the ones that need it, and then you interact more with the ones that are all about you.
Yeah, exactly. And that also plays into obviously having a male and a female mixed crowd, and how young the crowd may be or how old the crowd may be. Some people may not want to listen to certain things, or we always like to get the guys involved. Always make the guys, whoever maybe the bachelorette has her husband to be there, or the birthday girl has her boyfriend there or husband there. Always make him dance with her, or I'll dance with her friend while he dances on her, and we'll just have a really funny good time. And you always want to make sure you always make the playfulness and everybody else have that kind of flexibility to kind of involve the whole show around that person and yourself and the people that may be uncomfortable, and make them have a good time. Sometimes when I have a really uncomfortable female, I like to say, hey, can you show me how to twerk? Yeah. And that's what I like to do.
Yeah. One of the things I do too in Latin parties, I normally, or even actually, it doesn't matter which party, but I typically ask them if they know how to dance, like merengue or something really simple, or bachata. Yeah. And when they say yes or no, I'm like, cool, come on, get up, and I'll like guide them through it whenever that song comes on on my playlist, and it helps kind of get them involved and break the ice and takes you out of that stripper type mentality. Right. The skit really helps when it comes to males too. I know you started to touch on that as well. Anything you can do that proves that you are there doing a job and for fun, instead of trying to be overly passionate or aggressive with women, really goes a long way with making males feel making them feel comfortable with you as well as with the situation. Because at the end of the day, I mean, of course, any human being is gonna be like, "Wait, you're getting a stripper? Like, why do I want to be there for that?" But you want to really, like, it was great. Like you said, you incorporate them in your show. That makes a world of difference. Another thing as well is I always like to throw out amateur night to them. I'm like, hey, amateur night every Thursday night, you should definitely come out. And that normally either like makes them go to another room or be like, yeah, I'll go there next week with my wife. I'm like, awesome. I got a spare pair of underwear in my suitcase if you want to join me. So things like that really definitely kind of set the mood. And it also dictates how far you go. Obviously I'm not saying like you just strip down butt naked, but if it's an all-female party, you typically can get away with a little bit more interaction with the females or with the party in general than you can if it's mixed group. Right. Because like you stated, you don't know if it's someone's boyfriend, someone's husband, someone's father, someone's brother. Like you just really don't want to push that envelope. So those, I give myself a little more distance. I might not get as close to everyone as I would. I may or may not let a girl jump on me and stuff like that. And you just want to keep it. You always want to be at the safest level of aggression, for lack of a better term, or enthusiasm. Let's say the safest level of enthusiasm. You want to figure out what the, kind of like what a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, kind of that type of thing. If there's someone that's overtly conservative, you'd rather keep that party happy than to risk it taking a negative feel because someone overreacted or just didn't feel comfortable.
Right. And another thing I always like to do is incorporate pictures at the end of every Stripagram, and after everybody's having a good time, I always like to conclude it and say, who wants to take some pictures, and 90% of the time everybody's like, yeah, me. So you always want people to remember the moment and kind of have that feel that, hey, we had such good time, it was a lot of fun and everything like that, and he gave us these posters and these cards, and we have all this memorabilia now, and you really want to let them have a good time and take some funny pictures. Maybe you're eating a piece of cake with her, or you're exchanging a drink or something like that.
It's actually really funny you say everyone jumps up for that, because typically, like for me, like no one wants to be the first person, so I always have to kind of coerce, and then as soon as I get one or two pictures, then everyone starts lining up. So typically what I do is, as soon as I kind of feel that part where the party's starting to get to the point where the dancing needs to kind of slow down, I'll go ahead and dance on the bachelor one last time, and then be like, all right, everyone, let's give Susie Q a big round of applause, congratulations. Right. And then with that, during that time, I'll lower the music up, like, all right, ladies, we're gonna go ahead and capture the event and the memory. So I'm gonna need everyone to get up, everyone, and we're gonna take a picture of the whole group, celebrate her party, and then from there I'm gonna take one with just the bride to be. And then we can take as many pictures as you guys want. And just kind of getting the ball rolling on those first two pictures really kind of opens the door with like, oh, yeah, this is fun. And then, it takes, oh, I want to take a picture with my sister. Oh, I want the bridal party. Oh, I want this. And it gives you an opportunity to seem more human with them, because you just showed up, you did a skit, you stripped, you danced. So you're more than the average Joe.
Right.
You're someone unique. And for a lot of them, overtly they've never been around a stripper. So now it's the time to switch gears and make it a little more personal and take them to that next level of comfort. During the pictures, since the music's low and people are interacting, that's like you said, you're doing funny stuff, you're interacting with, you're cracking jokes, things that kind of take you a little out of character. You don't have to necessarily be Joe Cool now. And you crack jokes with people, you take funny poses, and it really adds another level of comfort and helps escalate the environment. And regardless of what's, like we stated earlier, you're there to enhance the party, so you want to keep building up to that apex to keep it going even when you walk out the door. And the good thing about pictures too is it really it makes it okay. Mm-hmm. If you took pictures of something, you kind of feel like, hey, I won't mind reliving this or showing this to somebody, and it lets people think, and people start posting on social media and stuff. And it's really good for ourselves because it's free publicity. Mm-hmm. Because someone sees like, hey, what were you doing with a naked dude? And people are like, oh, he's a stripper girl. You need to, let me tell you about him and this and that.
Right. And
it also opens the door for people being more open to coming to Le Bear if they haven't. It really kind of, it's the gateway drug, if you will. I've had a taste of one stripper, now I want to taste them all type thing.
Yeah.
So we go into the promotions typically after we have pictures. And that's where the perks that we talked about earlier, we'll start talking about the show. Hey, how many of you have been to Le Bear? Oh, 2 of you? Well, you 2 know what I'm talking about, right? And we tell them about the Las Vegas style show. We tell them that all the guys do these kind of skits and stuff like that every time somebody goes up. And it really kind of starts to open the door for a bigger experience, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would definitely say that's a great way how to close a show. You do your pictures, then you have your promotions of... like we have this Valentine's promotion, then we have Caesar's birthday, so I always usually take flyers of Caesar's birthday or something like that, or anyone else's event that we have coming up. Like Caesar said, we have the strip off and things like that for free tickets, and always like to make sure they know what next event we have at the club, and let them,
it gives them a reason to get together.
Yeah, of course, and they don't need to necessarily have us for another Stripagram. They could either follow us to the club or even have another Stripagram for someone else, and usually they'll get your information and say, hey, I got my girlfriend's party coming up, you want to do this, or I want you for my party, or blah blah blah, or they'll ask questions about coming to the club or anything like that. So it's a really good way to end the night or in the skit with just giving out those little free promos and things that they have forward to look to, and other guys that are at the club and stuff like that.
Typically when I start gathering everything from the club, I go up to the front desk and I grab at least 3 or 4 business cards from each other entertainer we have. And what I do is I end up passing those out at the Stripagram at the end, and I almost make them like trading cards. I give every girl 2 as I'm talking about these guys. Oh, Tyler's a resident cowboy. If you like big dudes, that's the guy. He's phenomenal. We have, Axel does aerial silks. And I just start selling each guy. Right. And you start to see girls, because then what they'll immediately do is look to the girl to the left and like, which 2 do you have? I'm like, hey, go ahead and trade them. Find the ones you like. They're like baseball cards. And they'll sit there and trade. And it sparks up conversation. And really, even if you weren't everyone's cup of tea that night, your personality won them over, and then they're going to see the physical attraction and what they want in other guys, which is just another stepping stone to come to the club and seeing the show and just exponentially increasing the popularity of the club and the industry in general.
Of course.
And like you stated too, just because they got you for cop, like there's always going to be a birthday, there's always going to be a bachelor party, and there's always going to be other themes. A lot of times I've stating stuff like that, hey, just to let you know, I love doing Stripagrams. I also do fireman, I do doctor, I do cowboy. There's always going to be that one girl like, hey, my girlfriend's birthday, or hey, I'm getting married in a month. I'm definitely going to get you outstanding. Definitely hit me up. I'll tell you what, if you book me within the next week, I'll go ahead and knock off 10% off the price. Little things like that really just kind of build that rapport, make them feel more special, and create that reoccurring income or business.
Right.
So at the end of promotions, as it starts to wind down, I start to kind of do a Q&A thing. Hey, does anyone have any questions? If you got, talk to those girls that have been to the club, they know what it's about. But definitely if you have any questions while I'm here. While I'm doing that is when I start to kind of pick up my stuff. while I'm stripping, I'm normally throwing stuff towards my suitcase and my speakers to keep everything consolidated because you don't want anything, people running around with your stuff. A lot of Latin parties are mixed crowds, but to the point where they also have like kids running around. I typically have them leave the room, but you never know.
Yeah.
Like eventually, especially when I start doing the pictures and stuff, to let the kids back in and all this crazy stuff. You have to be careful. Catch a little 8-year-old running across you while they take a picture of you in your underwear. It's like, that's not good.
That's super awkward.
Yeah, very much so. My favorite is when I'm there and they're like holding like kids and stuff, and I'm like, hey, can we have the kids leave? And they're like, yeah, sure, why? And I'm like, because they're kids. I'm getting naked. Like,
yeah,
they don't know, they don't think anything's going wrong. But so I collect my belongings and make sure I have everything. But I also start to get dressed. And for me, like one of the techniques I do to kind of really not break character, so to speak, is I'll have the bachelorette come in again, and maybe the lady that hired me or the maid of honor, and have them help me put my Velcro pants back on.
Yeah, I do that as well.
Yeah, it's a really good technique that kind of keeps the party going while you're not just sitting there kind of dressing like do.
Yeah, and then one thing I like to also do is either play with them and say, hey, I need you to help me put these pants back together, or someone will offer and do it. Or I usually, right before I say I want to take pictures and I start getting ready to gather my stuff, I'm like, does anybody want to take any pictures? And I'll have my pants in my hand and be like, do you want me to do them with my pants on or off? And
yes, great point, yes.
And then I'll clip them, and then I'll start to run them down, and they'll be like, well, let's take this picture. And I'm like, okay. So I've already got one pant leg done, so the awkwardness is there. Or sometimes I'll bring an extra pair of pants that aren't Velcro and put them in my suitcase and just put those on real quick. Because sometimes I have those stripagrams where I really just need to kind of get in and out situation where I'm not sitting there wanting to put my pants on and sit there and do the Velcro
You have
and
to,
stuff
it's
like
Saturday
that.
night, you want to get back to the club, or you have a follow-up stripagram that's happened as well. Like you said, that's a great point about follow-up pictures, because a lot of times, like I stated, with especially the more shy people, they might not necessarily be comfortable taking pictures of you in your underwear, but as soon as you put your pants on,
they're totally
down for it. So you kind of get once again hit everybody in the party.
Very much so.
So one of the final things I do is, as I'm leaving, they already got the full-blown party. They understand that they're going to get in for free and things like that. So I try to, hey, you know what, Saturday night, I don't know what else you guys going on, but we're open to 2 a.m. Don't be afraid to follow me back to the club, and we'll even try to put our bachelorette on stage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that really kind of helps build up the pipe. If they got stuff going on, then cool, more power to them. But if not, then hey, you get people to come into the club. It's really a good feeling because you're kind of king of the world at that point.
Yeah.
You were the number one dude for that stripagram. When they come back to the club, it doesn't matter if they like every other guy in that club but you. They're still going to love you because you're their favorite. You had their stripagram and you brought them to the club. So it's a really good thing to kind of once again encourage
them just following you back to the club and just wanting to hang out and party more.
I guess
really.
that'd
be the best way to put it, is just to give them more incentive to be like, hey, you already know me, you already got some comfort levels, and like what Caesar does, I hand out other people's cards and be like, this guy works there, and they go, oh my gosh, does he really look like this? Yeah, he's a good looking guy, you should come check him out. And they start, chit chatting and saying, we should go, we ain't got nothing else to do. And most of the time they end up following you back to the club.
Yeah, very true, very true. And it's just an extension of the party.
Mm-hmm.
You're friends with all of them. You know half of their names and stuff. So it really kind of just makes it even better night for you as well as for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, lastly, as you're going out, you kind of want your little catchphrase or say farewell to everyone, because if they don't, you at the very least want them to remember you. The last thing you want is you walked out the door and they're like, what was his name?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just yell out, hope to see you guys later. Remember, crowd pleaser for your next party. I'll see you ladies later. And it makes a difference. It really does. Like, kind of throwing it out there one last time is kind of like a farewell, and really does kind of set a good presence for the rest of the evening. So, I mean, do you have anything else that you kind of do on your way out the door? Not really?
Not really. I mean, I just I let them know, give the girl a hug and say, congratulations on your engagement, or happy birthday, or whatever the occasion
definitely
is,
one last final round of applause, for sure.
I do that one time for sure, and then either I'll take one picture, leave them with her out the door, or if once they're done with the pictures or whatever it may be, I really just like to give them that one last incentive. Hey, I don't really actually tell them my name. That's something I probably should do.
Definitely.
Saying,
very
hey,
much.
I'm Tyler Owen. Nice to meet y'all. I mean, I usually do that and introduce myself one last time, or give my little farewell to every girl at the party and say, I appreciate you having me out. Give them a little hug or whatever, and then leave. That's usually what I do.
Yeah, typically what ends up happening is I also start getting the personal questions about my heritage, because obviously being in Texas, it's primarily, the Latin culture here is primarily Mexican, and me coming from Florida, I'm Caribbean. So as soon as they start hearing me Spanish, when normally towards the end is when they're all like, "So de donde eres?" Because they know, like, they're like, "You're not Mexican, so where are you from?"
Yeah.
So it's always kind of humorous. Everyone trying to figure out. I normally let them guess, and of course, if I tell them I'm like American, but my heritage is Cuban, they're always like, "I knew it, I knew it." I'm like, "Really? I have all the types of Latins. You knew I was Cuban. Of course you did." So let's go ahead and go into our worst event and best event of the week. But I think we could change it a little bit and do to the topic of this episode, and we could do kind of our best and worst Stripagram type stories.
Okay.
What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, I'm down to do
All
whatever.
right, so
That's a good point.
I'll take the first one. Both of mine are kind of gotta go hand in hand a little bit. For my worst one, during the summer, I did a Stripagram in someone's garage. And it was in a neighborhood where the kids were playing outside, so they couldn't have the garage door open. They had it open when I got there, and I was like, "Hey, look, can you like bring it down?" So they brought it down to where it's only cracked for a foot. And I will tell you what, I didn't even finish the skit, and I was drenched in sweat. So it made it quite awkward. Like, my bandana was soaked, like, after about the first two songs. I felt pretty horrible, but they loved it. I think maybe one person was like, "I feel like I'm sliding off you." I'm like, "I feel like I'm sliding off everybody." The flip side to that, though, is during the winter, I guess apparently they just like keeping me outside. During the winter, it was probably about 40 degrees outside, and they had a party in their backyard. So they had the grill going. It was a really nice backyard. They had one of those glass fire pits and stuff like that. But of course, I had to get naked, and so like I was trying to dance my heart out to keep my body warm.
Right.
But yeah, oh man, I was free. So when we finally got to the pictures, like I was just freezing, all that sweat freezing on me, and then everyone was in there with their like 3 or 4 layers of clothing and stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so both those were kind of weather intensive ones. How about you?
I would say probably my worst event was, man, it was last summer. So I was doing a cowboy skit, and I had a park in Fort Worth, and downtown, like 7th Street, I had nowhere to really park. I had to call the girl to find me. It took me like 30 minutes for me to get parked, and let alone get in the right parking complex, follow them to the deal, and then they say, "Okay, well, we're going to park. Do you mind following us up?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I'm dressed in this kind of, out there country skit deal. It's my shirt sleeves are cut off. I look like like I'm really just getting off the ranch. Mm-hmm. And it was really embarrassing for me, but hell, I fit right in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And I'm walking into this nice, like, Four Seasons style hotel, and everybody's kind of looking at me like, why is this guy, like, jacked, looking weird, carrying a briefcase with a cowboy hat, walking in this hotel? I just, like, roughed it and walked in there, but it was super awkward and just really, 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 really time consuming just even getting to the place. That was my worst event doing a Stripagram so far.
I did one earlier in my career. I was hired for a Stripagram. It was a birthday. So I show up, and it is literally 3 women.
Oh, wow.
Which is the minimum for a Stripagram. So they must have just brought in their neighbor or something to meet the quota. And I was still early in my career, so I wasn't the most interactive human being yet. I didn't really quite know, but like I'll tell you what, when you're trying to milk 45 minutes with 3 people, and they were, God bless their souls, they were just some of the most antisocial people I've ever met. Like, it was very much one-word answers. 2 of them didn't even react to me dancing. I danced in front of them, and they just stood there bold-faced, kind of like the clerk in the second Magic Mike movie, where Joe was trying to make her smile.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I was dealing with, except I didn't have the success he did. And, oh, man, like, every time, luckily I wasn't wearing a watch, but every time, like, I was just like, is it time yet? Is it time yet? And then, of course, like, I'm like, oh, maybe I could finish a little early, go to pictures, but I'm like, pictures with 3 people takes all about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, man, I felt horrible. I really did. I'm like, oh my God, but they loved it. They had a great.
That's awesome.
They came to the club that night, and they're like, it was so much fun. I was like, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
That's funny. That's a good time. I would say another bad event for me was showing up to a party, and it was really like a 1/3, maybe 2/3 male, and I mean there was probably 15, 20 women there. Wasn't anything horrible. It was just very awkward. It was one of my first or second Stripagrams by myself, and I didn't really know how to handle the situation 100% yet. And the gentleman's wife said some comment of, I thought he said, "That's enough," or "Is that it?" I guess is what he said. He asked if that's it, but I thought he meant "that's it" as in stop dancing.
Oh,
so I
yeah.
started to get dressed, and I was like, this is super awkward, because there was like way too many guys for me to be pissing off. So I started getting dressed, and the girl's like, "Hey, are you already done?" I said, "Hey, that guy told me that's it. I don't want to cause any problems." And I started to get really, really scared about what was going to happen. I mean, I'm a big guy, but against 15, 20 pissed off married men is not cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So he comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, I was asking if that was it, as in you're done." I said, "No, we were just getting started." So that was a really, really hard situation to kind of deal with and get through for myself.
Oh yeah, it's always touch and go, especially when there's sometimes a language barrier. You want to always, once again, play on the safest role. So I understand that. Recently, actually, I was on a Stripagram, and I got there early, and so I was outside prepping. I waited in the car for about 5 minutes, and then I got out of the car, went to the trunk, and started to prep all my equipment, make sure it sync, my phone to my speakers and whatnot, and smell good. And an older gentleman walks by. So I greet him, "Hey, good evening." He doesn't say a word to me, keeps on walking. I'm like, all right. So I finish getting ready, or close to it, and I kind of have that feeling, inkling in the back of my neck. So I turn around, and the same gentleman is just standing on the corner, just minding his own business, apparently. So I finish up, and he walks by me again. So this time I don't say anything. So about 30 seconds go, he goes back into his house, and then 30 seconds goes by. I'm about to close my trunk. And then I get a flashlight to the face, and I hear, like, "How you doing tonight?" I'm like, "Not too bad." And I'm kind of squinting through the light, and then I see a badge. I'm like, "Officer, how are you?" And they're like,
Oh, man.
"What's going on here?" I'm like, "Nothing, just getting ready to do a private party, a stripagram. I'm a stripper." And, like, they instantly, like, I could just tell, like, they kind of held back a chuckle. And they're like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yes, officer. Like, here's my suitcase. Like, show my business cards and stuff." He's like, No, that's not necessary."
That's funny.
And, they were just, I guess it was one of those things like, who's going to lie and say they're a stripper? So I was like, "I'm sorry, is there a problem or whatever?" And luckily for me, I was in my fireman costume. And they're like, no, there was just there's a robbery in the neighborhood, and we're hunting down the guy that we're trying to hunt him down. So we're still looking around. We just kind of had to run by. And I was like, "A certain old man didn't happen to give you a anonymous tip here recently, did he?" And they're like, "We don't know what you're talking about." And they kind of smirked. I was like, "All right, cool. Well, thank you very much, guys, but I kind of got to go." They're like, "Sure, no worries," or whatnot. So I closed my trunk, and I'm sure enough, like, it was just enough to make me late. And so the person that hired me was sitting outside her door, like, "Where are you? Where were you?" I was like, "I've been here." Mind you, I was only literally like 2 minutes late because I looked at my watch. But, like I said earlier, that was enough to piss her off. And then, or enough to, yeah, it was enough to piss her off. So then it was funny, though, because then I was like, "Look, I'm sorry I was here on time, but these cops stopped me." And she's like, "Cops stopped you? Have you been drinking?" I'm like, "Gosh, no." Like, there's a robbery in your neighborhood, and they're trying to find the guy. And then she's like, "What? It's not safe?" I was like, "Oh, my God." I'm like, "Let's just go inside. Let's just go inside and have a little stripagram. I promise it'll be okay." Oh, man. So that was like,
funny.
Yeah, that was about 7 minutes of frustration until I got it going on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then, of course, with my luck, it was a bunch of hecklers. Like, the entire Stripagram, they were just giving me crap one way or another.
Yeah.
I was just like, 45 minutes.
That's funny. That's a good time. Yeah, I mean, what would you say would have been your best event so far then?
Honestly, I got two that kind of, like, show up at the top of my list. The first one, similar to what you had, but the opposite at the same time. It was a 40-year-old woman's birthday, and they were doing a white party, so they asked me to come in theme. I said, "Sure, not a problem," so I went ahead, and it was a white party, so I got dressed in all white clothes and just decided, you know what, I'm going to do my doctor's skit. I could play it off as an off-duty doctor or whatnot. So I show up, and as soon as I knock on the door opens, and it's like 4 dudes that look about as big as you are, right? All dressed in white, and then there's a pool table. So I'm immediately like, I could be at the wrong party, but someone here hired a stripper? And then the biggest guy at the door was immediately like, "Yeah, that's awesome, get on in here." So he pulled me in there, and like, nothing but dudes. I'm like, yeah, like, where is this? I'm like, no, all the ladies are in the living room. So I go over to the living room, and it's a mixed crowd. Like, I would say, honestly, 50-50 straight up. And it's not the biggest house, so it makes it look even more crowded. So people are sitting on top of each other and this and that. They have a handful of chairs. So once again, I'm like, all right, cool. So while everyone's settling down, I'm talking really loud and I'm trying to get the, so I managed to clear out a little bit of area and put 3 folding chairs down. So I put the bachelorette and her 2. And the bachelorette, or the birthday girl's husband's there. And this dude is uber enthusiastic. Like, I think he is more excited about me being there than his wife is, which I thought was hilarious. So I end up going through the skit and everyone's laughing and this and that and having a good old time. And I get to the part where, time's to strip and dance. Well, mind you, I had the whole place packed. Everybody was there for the skit, and they were laughing, having a great time because they were already intoxicated, and I was, cracking jokes with everyone. So then, the party started to die down a little bit because half the guys were obviously like, well, I don't really care to watch this. And because there were so many guys, I wasn't getting too crazy with it. So I had an epiphany. I mean, I've done it before, but never to this level. So I finally was like, all right, that's it. Who's here with their significant other, wife, girlfriend, doesn't matter, boyfriend, it don't matter. And like, most of the people raise their hands. So I'm like, outstanding. All right, I'm going to need some chairs. I need all the ladies that are here with someone to find a spot. Chair, sofa, corner, stool, doesn't matter. So they all did. And I'm like, all right, all the guys that are here with these respective women, go stand in front of them. I'm like, all right, we're having a lap dance class. And so I literally gave a lap dance class, walking them through the whole thing.
That's great.
For like the next 15 minutes. And it was great too because like they were all having a good time and joking and stuff like that. But then I was finally like, all right, so everyone's feeling all gutsy and feeling comfortable with themselves. You're about to have a taste of what we go through every day. Everyone rotate one person to the left. And oh my God, everyone's eyes just shot wide. Half the people were like, I am not. Like, it was all kinds of, I'm like, look, it's cool. Just turn your back. We're going to just dance backwards on them. So, like, there's no one has to look at anyone dancing on anyone else. It's fine. It ended up being a really great time. They had a blast. And shoot, even some of the guys tipped me at the end of the night while I was leaving.
It's really cool.
So that was one of my best moments. I'll talk about my other one first, but you go first. What was
yours? I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. And this was a recent best moment. I've had a lot of really good experiences on them. The best thing was, I went to the Stripagram party, had a great time. It was a girls' bachelorette party. Her name was Siler, I think, and we had a good time. It was really fun. The girls were really interactive. Everybody was having a great time, and I sat there and I was like, I want to do something that I've never done with any party. And the girls looked at me and said, well, what's that? And I said, have you guys ever heard of the mannequin challenge? So I played the music and had the girls record actually a mannequin stripper challenge type theme.
Wow, that's awesome.
It was actually really funny, man. The girls really loved it. They had a good time. I mean, I had my pants torn a little bit, so it wasn't too inappropriate to record, and everything was really good. I was like dancing on the girls. All the girls were like having a good time, looking like they're having drinks, eating like this cake, and it was really, really fun. And at the end of the night, all those girls ended up, like 15 of them, coming to the club with me. So
that's always a great feeling.
Yeah, it was a really good time, man. That was definitely one of my best events.
That's awesome, man. Let's see. One of my other best times. It's actually kind of funny. It goes into things. So I had a stripogram at a hotel room, and I was there early. So I was waiting in the elevator lobby, on that floor, getting ready, and this more mature couple came out, and they're sitting there waiting. They're about to go out. It's early Saturday night or whatnot, and they keep looking at me. Then finally, the gentleman looks at me, and the gentleman's like, are you the kind of person I think you are? And I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, are you working right now? I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, you have a good time. I'm like, you too.
That's
so
awesome.
They walked off, and then, of course, as the elevator's closing, like, the wife gives me another look or whatever. I'm like, bye. So I do this stripogram, and, like, these ladies were well intoxicated. And I have to mention this because at one point, the bachelorette is dragging me into the bathroom. Like, I mean, I am clawing. Like, she had this, like, drunk Hulk strength because, like, she literally was pulling me towards the bathroom. And I'm thinking in my head, like, karma. I'm like, you are getting married. No, I'm clawing at the wall.
Yeah.
And then the other girls are so intoxicated. They're just cheering her on and think it's hilarious. I'm like, this is not funny. So I finish the stripogram. As I'm leaving, I go to give the bachelorette a hug, and then she pushes me into the broom or the coat closet. Because in hotels it's right next to the door. And she pushes me in. I have to catch myself, with one hand. So I have one hand in my suitcase trying not to hit her with it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So finally the girl that hired me pulls her all right. So I'm like, whew, made it out of there alive. No claw marks. We're good to go.
Oh my God.
So I leave. I get in the elevator. I'm dropping down. Elevator stops. 3 guys come in. They see me in my cop uniform. So they get a little quiet. You know, they're like, this is a little awkward, you know, of course, or whatnot. Then finally one guy looks and he's like, wait, mohawk? And he looks down. He's like, tattoo? He looks down even further. He's like, suitcase. And then he like looks at his buddies and he looks over and he leans in and he's like, dude, are you a stripper? And I'm like, yup, what gave it away? And he's like, dude, that's so cool. So they end up taking selfies with me in the elevator. But so like, take it a step further. I'm kidding you. Like, you couldn't script this. We stop like 2 floors down. Elevator doors open. 3 girls walk in. One of them wearing a bachelorette sash. So then I get in and they're already kind of pre-gaming. And sure enough, the guys I just took pictures with are like, girls, I don't know where you guys are going, but you should probably go to where this guy works at. And they turn around and they look and then they put 2 and 2 and they're like, oh my God, are you a stripper? I'm like, yeah, here's my card. Definitely come out and see us.
That's awesome. That's really fun, man.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my better events. And made me feel pretty good by the time I got in the car and had to come back to the club. Do you have any more toppers?
Not anything that can really come to my mind at this moment.
All right.
I really like the mannequin challenge one. That's
pretty neat.
I'd have to leave it on that.
Yeah, you almost could do that like every 2 or 3 times.
I think I will.
Make a collection of that'd be pretty awesome.
It would be badass.
Make like a highlights video. Mm-hmm. That'd be awesome. All right, well, with that, we're going to go ahead and move into our listener questions. So we have Susan from Dallas asked, do most entertainers have second jobs outside the club during the day? So for me, I actually do firearms training and dance lessons, as well as a little bit of life coaching and personal training outside the club. I used to obviously, like they said in the documentary, work at UPS and pick up dog poop during the day. But as I became more active in stripping and made it my career, I kind of moved away from that. And then, you know, my extracurricular jobs now kind of let me do it at my own leisure. Mm-hmm. But it's also something I enjoy doing. I enjoy shooting. I enjoy dancing. I enjoy helping people. How about you, Tyler?
For myself, I really don't do anything but devote myself to the club full time. Every now and then I'll get some people that want to be personal training clients, and I do pick those up every now and then. And like you said, I do that at my leisure because most of the time that I have free from the club, I'm either relaxing or training myself or dieting or something that does involve various activities that do pertain back to the club. So this is a full-time job for me. And my second job would be if I feel like someone's real serious about me training them, or they want to pick up, you know, eating habits or anything like that pertains to the fitness industry. I'm more than happy to do that for someone. So I've also looked into doing online coaching for people to kind of help give me a little more time to myself, to where I don't have to devote that one-on-one contact, and I can do it on the fly from my computer. Correct. So those are some things that I do for people that do request those from me.
Yeah, I believe it's probably about a third of male entertainers have jobs outside. I think it also based on the club. I know a lot of the guys in the Miami clubs do have daytime jobs. Mm-hmm. I believe in San Antonio it might be somewhere about half and half. Mm-hmm. I think our club's probably leaning more towards full-time strippers than anything else.
Right.
So thanks for your question, Susan. Appreciate it. Then Vanessa from Louisiana says, do male strippers have similar restrictions on footwear, much like women are required to wear heels of a certain height? I think the easy answer is just no.
Yeah.
We don't have any restrictions or requirements. That being said, though, occasionally, you know, something might come down the pipe if guys are getting a little too crazy with their footwear, like wearing neon-colored shoes or something like that. That doesn't quite have professionalism. Then they might be like, hey guys, like let's stick to neutral color shoes or something. I know for a while there, most of the guys were wearing Chuck Taylors or Converse. Mm-hmm. That was a popular thing for a while, but pretty much like legally or anything like that, we don't have any restrictions. You want something that you can dance in and you're not gonna be sliding all over the place, but we have guys like Tyler that wear cowboy boots. I wear my New Rock boots sometimes, or I'll wear sneakers depending on how much I want to dance. Mm-hmm. The majority of the time, I think guys just wear sneakers, though.
Yeah, sneakers or high tops at least. There is kind of a set standard, you know, more or less it's black and a high top. Nothing crazy to really give you a lift to be, you know, you got to be 6 foot tall to ride this ride type deal. But I think everybody has kind of their own preference on their style and what they like to wear. For me, I'd like to get into more, you know, like Caesar was about to say, combat boots. That's something I'm kind of leaning towards, and getting more of a sneaker type boot look and things like that. I feel like it kind of makes you portray a different look and gives you that kind of vibe and change. When I wear cowboy boots, I wear a cowboy hat. When I wear sneakers, I wear, a flat bill, or, chains or necklaces or bracelets and stuff like that. So shoes come into play, but there's no real restriction on it.
Correct. All right. Thanks, Vanessa. Appreciate your question. All right. With that, I think we're going to call it a show. Once again, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. The show is brought to us by you. You guys can check us out and support the show on patreon.com/crowdpleaser. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month, and you can end whenever you like. It definitely helps us out to bring you better shows and content through better equipment. And you can get all kinds of cool perks, like maybe one day even being on the show and discussing things with us. You can help us pick show topics and even get behind the scenes footage of us rehearsing our acts on stage and whatnot. You can also reach us on social media. I'm Caesar LeBear on Facebook, as well as Caesar LeBear 7 on Twitter and Instagram. Tyler, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is either Facebook or Instagram. My Facebook is LeBear Tyler Owen, and then my Instagram username fit.owen, O-W-E-N. And like at the end of every show, I always like to have a little sign off. And today we talked about stripagrams and stuff like that. And me and Caesar are always available for stripagrams. And we also have partner stripagrams that we do. You can either get 1 or 2 entertainers for a little private party, and we'd be more than happy to bring that to you guys and definitely fulfill the show quality that we perceive to give you guys, and the things that we talked about. And we're definitely going to fulfill and live up to those expectations and that type of quality. So we want to say thank you guys again, and definitely check out our Patreon page, and thank you so much for listening.
Hasta luego.